There are a lot of items in Megabonk that, although they have a description, are quite hard to understand exactly how they work and how they scale when you have multiple copies. Like, how exactly does Holy Book or Overpowered Lamp work, and what actually happens when you get multiple Grandma's Tonic? These are some of the questions I will answer in this video so that you can make more informed decisions in your runs. First off, let's start with Grandma's Secret Tonic. This is an item that I have personally really overvalued until now, because after getting 5 of these, it does not increase any stat at all. To explain why, let's talk about how it works. A single Grandma's Tonic on its own is pretty powerful. It has a 50% chance to explode in a radius, which deals 50% of your crit damage to nearby enemies. This has a radius of 4 meters. You also get a bonus stats of 2% crit chance when you pick up your first Grandma's Tonic. This only applies to the very first one you get though. When you get a second copy, the only thing that changes is that the radius of the explosion increases by 1. This scaling is true until you get 5 of them, and at that point it reaches a radius of 8, which is the max cap for this item. So grabbing a 6th one or more of these will do literally nothing at all. This means that although some top runs have been running this item, I actually don't think it's worth it at all to toggle it on in the current meta. Next up, let's talk about Cursed Grabbies. You probably know the obvious parts of this item. It increases your difficulty by 10% per stack and lowers your HP by multiplying it with 0.8. The less obvious part is that it has a 5% chance to cast cursed magic upon hitting an enemy. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, this is what that looks like in game. You'll notice that when it procs, it will hit any enemies in a small radius. The burst damage in the footage here doesn't look like much, but it does scale with your level and amount of Grabbies you have. This has linear scaling, so the more Grabbies you have, the more damage you will deal. In terms of how often this procs, the description is a little bit misleading. The game says there is a 5% chance for cursed magic to proc, but this number is actually fed into what's called a hyperbolic formula. So the real starting chance when having just one is about 2.94%, not 5%. Hyperbolic formulas is a common concept in this game because it means you will have diminishing returns the more items you pick up of one. Cursed Grabbies specifically, the theoretical max percentage of proccing is 50%, but it will never actually reach that point no matter how many Cursed Grabbies you pick. But since the damage has linear scaling, it can still be worth picking up quite a few of these, because it can deal quite a lot of damage. However, in the current meta, most people choose not to run this item because it works against Holy Book by lowering your HP. And Holy Book is currently a very strong meta item. So on that note, let's talk about how Holy Book actually works. As the description says, you will gain 100 max HP and 50 HP regen when picking it up. Furthermore, healing will now radiate damage to nearby enemies. Besides what it says here, it also makes it possible to overheal for 25%. Overhealing is just this extra yellow bar at the end of your health and allows you to heal more than your actual max HP. Now, the way Holy Book works is that every time you heal, Holy Book will store however much healing you did, and then every 1.5 seconds it will explode and deal damage to enemies around you based on how much you healed in that time window. So the amount of damage is based on how much healing you've done, as can be seen in this formula. This basically means that the more you heal and the higher level you are, the more damage you will deal. And every time you get another copy of Holy Book, you gain another plus 100 max HP, you gain 50 plus HP regen and 25% overheal. It also increases the explosion radius by 1 meter per book. For reference, the starting radius for just having one book is 5 meters. So getting more than one is actually pretty strong, because more max HP and more regen makes it possible for you to heal more over time and in turn deal more damage. Now, the actual main reason that Holy Book is so strong is because it basically acts like a 5th weapon. This means that it can deal both crit damage, but it can also proc other items like the Ice Cube or the Bonk Hammer, as well as a bunch of other items that has proccing abilities. And this is ultimately why Holy Book is so strong. Next up, we have the Overpowered Lamp. The description says that it has a +1 chance to proc on hit effects. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, basically, if an item like the Ice Cube has a 20% chance to inflict ice damage, every time you are shooting an enemy, you're basically rolling a 5-sided dice, and if it lands on the correct number here, it will inflict ice damage. But if you have an Overpowered Lamp, you are now rolling 2 dice instead. This means that just like a dice, there's a chance that both of them hit the right number. So with an overpowered lamp, there is also a chance that one shot can proc an item multiple times. This is why the lamp is so strong, because if you have 10 lamps, well, that's like rolling 10 dice, and you could see how this could proc a lot of items a lot of times. So this item definitely lives up to its name. It is currently quite overpowered. Next up, let's talk about the Bloody Cleaver. The description itself is actually pretty clear, as it says, lifesteal now activates blood mark stacks. Also adds 50% chance to apply blood mark. While this is pretty clear, the one thing that is not explained anywhere is what blood mark is. Well, you can see it the best against bosses on their HP bar. The dark red part of the HP bar is the blood mark that's been applied. This will by default explode after either 5 or 4 seconds, depending on where the blood mark came from, or it would explode instantly if the blood mark deals lethal damage. It can also explode later than 5 seconds if you keep applying more blood stacks before it explodes, because every time you apply one blood stack, it resets the timer. Blood mark gets applied to any enemy, not just bosses, and you can see the damage it deals from the red damage output text. How much damage it will deal can also be calculated with this formula. The damage multiplier here is the actual damage percentage you have in the game. So how much damage this deals scales with your actual damage modifier as well as your level and however many blood mark stacks are on the enemy. If you get multiple bloody cleavers, the 50% chance when hitting an enemy is additive. So with 2 bloody cleavers, you have a 100% chance to apply 1 blood mark stack. And if you have 4, you will have a 200% chance. And this just means that each weapon hit will now apply 2 blood mark stacks every time, which effectively just ups the amount of damage it does. Next up is the Curse Doll. The description says that it curses an enemy, dealing 30% of their max HP every second. So in the game, when you see an icon like this, that means that the enemy is cursed and any non-bosses will die within 4 seconds. But there are also a few things that the item doesn't tell you. For instance, on bosses this curse deals significantly less damage. I will show you the exact formula on screen here. This just means that your damage depends on your level, as can be seen from the table here. So it's not a strong item for bosses, but it is very strong for normal enemies. Now, a single copy of Cursed Doll can curse anywhere from 2 to 6 enemies at once. I do believe this is actually a bug, as I think the intended mechanic for one doll is to only be able to curse 2 enemies at once, but I could be wrong here. Either way, it still scales with multiple copies, so for each extra copy of Cursed Doll you pick up, you have the capability to curse 2 more enemies at once. Whether or not this is a bug doesn't really matter, it just means that this item might be a little bit stronger than intended currently. Finally, let's just quickly mention the key here. This one is probably pretty well understood by now, but just to sum it up, keys also scale with hyperbolic scaling, so a chart would look like this. Technically, having one key doesn't mean you have a 10% chance either, but really it's closer to 9.1% because of how the formula works. As you can see on the graph here, you will start seeing diminishing returns relatively quickly. As I mentioned earlier, plenty of items use this type of mechanic, which is why for a lot of items in the game, going beyond a certain amount doesn't really seem to make much of a difference. And if this is the case for some of the items you've been using, you can probably assume that it is using hyperbolic scaling. But anyway, that is all I have for this video. I hope you learned something. I know there's plenty of other items and interactions out there that might not be super clear. I was planning on going through every single item in this video, but these types of video requires quite a lot of technical research, so I figured I would just explain the items that I myself had the hardest time really understanding. If you have any specific items or interactions you would like to know, let me know in the comments and I might just make a new video about them. Finally, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who's been liking, subscribing and leaving nice comments. It is kind of insane to me how much traction my videos gained out of nowhere. So thank you all so much for that. It really means the world to me. But anyway, that's all. Peace.